Hi, I am Kevin, and I'm a biologist and PhD student at the University of Antwerp in Belgium. And in this video, I will, with a little help of a poster I made, explain you briefly what I'm going to do in the next few years.
We all know that with the current changes in our climate system, we observe and expect an increase in extreme weather events. A very important example of this are droughts, which of course have a negative impact on the productivity of natural and artificial ecosystems on land. And moreover, these droughts diminish ecosystems' potential to act as sinks for carbon dioxide or carbon from the atmosphere. However, the exact impact on an ecosystem can vary a lot depending on multiple factors. And in my PhD project, I will investigate how one such factor, the nutrient availability, or let's say the soil fertility, may influence responses of ecosystems to extreme droughts. Under this title over here, you see what exactly I am planning to do. So I will focus on effects of droughts on carbon cycling, and this means effects on productivity and everything related to fluxes of CO2 between the ecosystems and the atmosphere. And then I try to find out how nutrient availability and also mycorrhizal fungi modulate these effects. And between brackets, for those who don't know, mycorrhizae are soil fungi that live in a positive symbiosis with plant roots, and they can functionally be considered as a type of extensions of the root system. Now, I'm sure you don't have to be a biologist to understand the basics of my research questions or hypotheses. For example, the drawing over here simply indicates that in poor soils, plants invest a lot in their roots to eventually take up as many nutrients as possible, while in the opposite case, nutrients are therefore free in the soil, so the plant does not have to build up an extensive root system and instead invests more in above ground structures. Now imagine there is a drought. Which one of these two will suffer most, you think? Well, likely the left one, because it has less access to the rare soil water, and moreover it will lose more water through its leaves. So in itself, this hypothesis is as very intuitive, but of course we are not just satisfied with knowing that the left one suffers more. No, we also want to quantify how much, and not just look at productivity, but also at fluxes of CO2 wherever possible. And in reality, other factors come into play as well, and of course, additional challenges do emerge. The first way in which I will test this hypothesis is by performing a meta-analysis. So I will summarize results from drought experiments worldwide and take the nutrient availability of the soil into account to draw general conclusions. Then my second hypothesis can be seen as a more detailed but less generalizable version of the first one. Here I will go to some ongoing drought experiments in Austria and Germany myself, where soil fertility is manipulated at the same time. Apart from determining the nutrient status and the root-shoot ratio, a bit like in meta-analysis, but in more detail here, I will also measure the abundance of those mycorrhizal fungi I told you about, as they may also relieve drought stress. Finally, I will then link my data to those of my international colleagues working there at the experimental sites. At these same experiments, I will also test my third hypothesis, which states that directly after the end of a drought, re-wetting of the soil can temporarily increase its fertility, which could then mitigate some adverse effects of the drought. I already told you that my research questions are rather easy, but particular challenges do occur. Especially for my meta-analysis, where I want to compare multiple experiments at different places, these challenges do emerge. For instance, how can we compare different droughts with each other? And how do we compare the soil fertility of different sites, as no standardized measure exists so far? Luckily, we have ideas to overcome these issues, and maybe I will tell you about it later on in another movie. In the end, why does all of this matter? Well, first of all, production of biomass is at the base of all life. So understanding how it is affected by climate extremes is of uttermost importance. And second, ecosystems on land currently offset about 30% of our carbon dioxide emissions. However, due to increasing climate extremes, such as these droughts, it is possible that our forests and grasslands cannot provide this service anymore in the future. So, if you want to know what a future climate will look like, we should get a better understanding of how ecosystems respond to climate change itself.
So to summarize, I will investigate how a climate extreme, namely drought, impacts on ecosystem carbon cycling and how these impacts depend on nutrients in the soil, and related to this, mycorrhizal fungi. My approaches include a meta-analysis of experiments carried out in the past to draw general conclusions, and more detailed field and lab work at ongoing experiments. In this broader context, my results should ultimately help in answering the question to what extent terrestrial ecosystems will still be able to mitigate climate change in the future.